I knew something was wrong the moment she said it. Don't touch me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't emotional. There was no anger behind it. No shaking voice, no hesitation. That's what made it worse. It sounded practiced, like she had said it in her head 100 times before finally saying it out loud to me. I remember my hand just hanging there in the air for a second, like my brain hadn't caught up to what I just heard. 8 years of marriage, and suddenly I'm standing in my own kitchen feeling like I crossed a line I didn't even know existed. Okay, I said quietly, pulling my hand back. She didn't respond, didn't look at me, just turned slightly, picked up her phone, and started typing like the conversation was already over. That was becoming her thing lately, ending things without actually ending them. Just shutting down, disappearing into that screen. And yeah, if I'm being honest, that wasn't the first sign. Not even close. It had been building for a while. I just didn't want to admit it. At first, it was small enough to ignore. A different perfume, subtle, but unfamiliar. Not something she'd ever worn around me before. When I asked about it, she shrugged and said it was a new brand someone recommended. Then came the phone. Always face down. Always within reach. Notifications lighting up at random hours, but never with names, just numbers or sometimes nothing at all. And every time I walked into the room, the screen would go dark like it knew I was there. I brought it up once. Just once. You've been on your phone a lot lately. She didn't even look up. I have work, you know? That was it. Conversation over. And the thing is, she wasn't defensive. Not in the way you'd expect. She didn't panic. Didn't over-explain. Didn't try to convince me of anything. She just didn't care if I believed her or not. That's what stuck with me. Because it meant something deeper than lying. It meant she wasn't afraid of losing me. And that realization, that hit harder than anything else. Because when someone stops being afraid of losing you, it usually means they've already found something else. Still, I tried to rationalize it. Told myself I was reading too much into things. That every relationship goes through phases. That maybe she was just stressed, or bored, or going through something she didn't know how to talk about. But then there were the little changes you can't explain away. She laughed differently around other people. Lighter, freer. With me, everything felt measured, controlled. Like she was giving just enough to keep things from completely falling apart, but never enough to feel real. And the physical distance? That was new too. Not just intimacy, everything. Small touches disappeared. No more casual hugs. No brushing past me in the kitchen. No absent-minded contact like we used to have without even thinking about it. It was like she had already drawn a line, and I just hadn't seen where it was yet. That night should have been normal. Just a small get-together. A friend of a friend hosting, nothing fancy. Music in the background, people talking over each other, drinks on the counter. The kind of place where you're supposed to relax. And for a while I tried. I grabbed a drink, made small talk, nodded through conversations I wasn't really listening to. But my attention kept drifting back to her. She was across the room, standing near the window, and she looked different. Not in how she dressed or anything obvious. It was the way she carried herself. The way she smiled. The way she leaned in when she talked. I hadn't seen that version of her in a long time. Not with me. That's when I noticed him. At first, he was just another guy in the room. Nothing special. Just someone standing a little too close, a little too comfortable. But then I watched longer. And the more I watched, the clearer it became. There's a difference between friendly and familiar. Friendly has space. Familiar doesn't. They didn't have space. The way she laughed at something he said. Head slightly tilted. Eyes locked on him like nothing else in the room existed. The way his hand brushed her arm and stayed there just a second longer than it should have. And the worst part? She didn't pull away. That slow, quiet realization settled in my chest like something heavy. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just undeniable. I stood there for a minute, maybe longer, just watching. Part of me was waiting for her to notice me. To look over, to acknowledge me, to remember I was there. She didn't. So I moved. Slow. Controlled. No rush. I wasn't angry, not yet. Just focused. I walked up to them, stopping just close enough to be part of the conversation. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice even. "We should probably head out soon." For a second, nothing happened. She didn't react right away. That alone was enough to tell me everything I needed to know. When she finally turned to look at me, there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not guilt, not even surprise. Annoyance. "Relax," she said, like I was interrupting something important. "I'm talking, right?" I shifted my gaze to him. He didn't say anything, didn't introduce himself, didn't step back, just stood there like he belonged. That's when something in me clicked. Not anger, clarity. "Don't do something you can't take back," I said. Calm, quiet, measured. For a split second, I thought it got through. Her expression changed, just slightly. But then she exhaled, like I was the problem, like I was embarrassing her. And right there, in front of me, she stepped closer to him, closed the distance completely, then wrapped her arms around him. Not quick, not awkward, comfortable, intentional, like she'd been waiting to do it. And just like that, I disappeared. I wish I could say I felt rage, that I lost control, made a scene, said something unforgettable. But I didn't, because in that exact moment, everything became simple. There was no confusion left, no doubt, no questions, just truth. This wasn't a marriage anymore. This was something else entirely. And whatever it was, I wasn't part of it. So I did the only thing that made sense. I turned around and walked out. No confrontation, no goodbye, no second chances, just silence. Because sometimes walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the moment you finally stop pretending you don't see what's right in front of you. I didn't drive home right away. I just sat there in the car, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead like if I stayed still long enough, maybe my brain would catch up to what just happened. But it didn't. If anything, everything started slowing down. Not in a calm way, more like when your mind starts replaying things you didn't fully process in the moment. Her voice, "Don't touch me," the way she looked at him, the way she didn't look at me, and that hug. It wasn't about him. That's what I realized sitting there. It wasn't about him at all. It was about me not mattering anymore. That's the part that hits you in a way nothing else does. You can handle anger. You can handle betrayal. But indifference, that quiet, effortless way someone shows you you're replaceable, that stays. I don't know how long I sat there. 10 minutes. Maybe 30. At some point, my phone buzzed. I already knew who it was before I looked. Her name on the screen. I stared at it for a second, then flipped the phone over without opening it. Another buzz. Then another. I didn't need to read them, because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to respond. That was new. Usually, I would have picked up, tried to fix it, tried to understand, to talk, to somehow pull things back before they broke completely. But sitting there in that silence, something shifted. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't chasing answers. I already had them. So instead of going home, I started driving. No destination, just moving. Streetlights passed in a blur, empty roads stretching out ahead of me. The city looked different at night, quieter, honest in a way it isn't during the day. No distractions. Just you and whatever you're trying not to think about. And of course, that's when everything comes back. Every small moment I ignored. Every time she pulled away and I told myself it was nothing. Every late night. Every "you're overthinking." It all lined up now like pieces of something I didn't want to solve before. I thought back to the last few months. How she started taking calls in the other room. How she'd leave the house for quick errands that somehow took hours. How her energy shifted depending on who she was around. With me, everything felt forced. With everyone else, she was alive. I should have seen it. But the truth is, when you're invested in something, you don't look for reasons it might be falling apart. You look for reasons to believe it's still holding together. That's the mistake. By the time I checked my phone again, there were 6 messages. I opened them. First one, "Where did you go?" Second, "Why did you leave like that?" Third, "You're overreacting." That one almost made me laugh. Overreacting, right? Then it shifted. Can you answer me? Are you seriously ignoring me? And finally, Mark, please. That last one sat differently. Not because of what it said, but because of how late it came. Like she only reached that point after realizing I wasn't playing along anymore. I locked the phone and tossed it onto the passenger seat. For the first time, I wasn't interested in explaining myself. I wasn't interested in arguing. And I definitely wasn't interested in competing with another man for my own place in my own life. That thought alone made something in me settle. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. I drove until I ended up in a random parking lot near a 24-hour diner. The kind of place you go when you don't want to be home but don't know where else to go. I didn't even remember pulling in. I just found myself sitting there, engine off, the quiet pressing in again. That's when it hit me. I didn't feel the urge to go back. Not to talk. Not to fix anything. Not even to confront her. And that scared me more than anything else. Because it meant something inside me had already let go. I went inside, ordered coffee I barely touched, and sat there watching nothing for what felt like hours. People came and went. Conversations happened around me. Normal life kept moving like mine hadn't just shifted completely. At some point, I checked the time. 4:30 a.m. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, didn't feel tired. Just empty. But not in a broken way. In a clean way, like something had been cut out. By the time I got back in the car, the sky was starting to lighten just enough to remind me morning was coming whether I was ready or not. And that's when I made a decision. Not out of emotion, not out of anger, just logic. I wasn't going to fight for someone who had already walked away. I wasn't going to beg for explanations from someone who had already shown me the truth. And I wasn't going to stay in a situation where I had to question my place. So I drove home, not to fix anything, not to argue, just to leave. When I pulled into the driveway, everything looked exactly the same. Same house, same lights off, same quiet, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. I walked inside slowly, almost expecting her to be waiting, ready with some explanation, some version of events that would somehow make things less clear. She wasn't. The house was empty, completely silent. For a second, I just stood there, listening. Nothing. No TV. No movement. No sign of her. I walked into the bedroom. Closet door open. And that's when I saw it. Empty hangers. Drawers half pulled out. Jewelry box gone. Not messy. Not rushed. Clean. Planned. Like she knew exactly what she was doing. And exactly when she was going to do it. That wasn't a reaction to what happened last night. That was preparation. That realization hit differently than anything else. Because it meant one thing. She didn't just choose him in that moment. She had already chosen him long before I ever walked into that room. And I was just the last person to realize it. I stood there for a while just taking it in. No anger. No shock. Just confirmation. Everything made sense now. The distance. The confidence. The lack of fear. She wasn't risking anything. Because in her mind, I was already gone. I let out a slow breath, grabbed a bag from the closet, one of the few things left, and started packing what little I needed. Not everything, just enough. Because the truth was, I wasn't trying to hold on to anything anymore. Not the house. Not the memories. Not even the version of her I thought I knew. That was already gone. And for the first time, I was okay with that. I didn't rush. That's the part people don't really understand unless they've been there. You'd think I'd start throwing things into a bag, moving fast, acting on emotion. But there wasn't any urgency in me. No panic. No chaos. Just precision. I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet, the same one we used for weekend trips, and set it on the bed. The irony didn't even sting. At that point, nothing really did. I started with the basics. A few shirts, jeans, toiletries, not everything, just enough. Because somewhere in the back of my mind, I already knew I wasn't trying to rebuild anything here. I was just leaving. Every drawer I opened told the same story. Empty, not messy, not rushed, organized, calculated. She didn't leave in a hurry. She executed a plan. And the more I moved through the house, the clearer that became. The bathroom, half cleared out. The hallway closet, her jacket's gone. Hangers spaced out like something had been carefully removed, not grabbed. Even the small things, her favorite mug, the one she always used in the mornings, gone. That's when it really settled in. She didn't just walk away from me. She erased herself. And she did it quietly, while I was still trying to understand what was happening. I let out a slow breath and zipped up the bag. No anger. No need to break anything. Because anger requires confusion. And I didn't have any left. I walked back into the living room, looking around like I was seeing the place for the first time. 8 years. Everything we built in here. And somehow it already felt like it belonged to someone else. That's when my phone buzzed again. I didn't even have to check. I knew it was her. Still, I picked it up. This time, I read it. Where are you? Short. Direct. No apology. No explanation. I stared at it for a second before locking the screen. Another buzz. Are you seriously leaving like this? There it was. Not concern. Not regret. Control. Like I was stepping out of line by not responding the way she expected. That's when something almost ironic hit me. For weeks, maybe months, I had been the one trying to hold things together. Trying to talk. Trying to understand. Trying to fix something that was already broken. And now that I wasn't playing that role anymore. She noticed. Another message. Mark, answer me. I set the phone down on the counter. Didn't respond. Didn't even think about what to say. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting to her. I was acting for myself. I grabbed my keys, slung the bag over my shoulder, and walked toward the door. And right before I stepped out, I stopped. Not because I was hesitating, but because I wanted to feel it. That moment. The exact point where everything ended. I looked back once. Not at anything specific. Just the space. And then I walked out. No drama. No closure. Just distance. I ended up at a cheap motel about 20 minutes away. Nothing special. Just a place to exist without questions. I checked in, dropped the bag on the chair, and sat on the edge of the bed. For a while I just sat there. No TV. No phone. No distractions. And that's when something unexpected happened. I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel like I'd lost something. I felt still. Like all the noise that had been building up for months had finally stopped. And in that silence, one thought kept coming back. She expected me to fight, to call, to show up, to demand answers. That's how this usually goes, right? One person betrays, the other chases. But I didn't chase. And that was the part she didn't plan for. My phone buzzed again. I picked it up this time. Are you really doing this? I almost smiled. Because the tone had changed. Less control. More uncertainty. Another message came in before I could even put the phone down. This isn't like you. That one hit differently. Because she was right. It wasn't like me. The old me would have been outside that house. Knocking on the door. Asking questions I didn't even want answers to. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. Not after what I saw. Not after how easy it was for her. Another buzz. Can we just talk? I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then locked it. Still no response. Time passed. I don't know how long. Maybe an hour. Maybe 3. I eventually lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. And that's when the weight of everything should have hit me. The betrayal. The ending. The reality of starting over. But it didn't come the way I expected. There was no breakdown. No moment where everything collapsed. Just understanding. She didn't lose me that night. She lost me the moment she stopped valuing what we had. And I didn't leave because of what I saw. I left because of what it confirmed. There's a difference. Another vibration. I picked up the phone again. This time I actually read all of them in order. Where are you? Are you seriously leaving like this? Mark, answer me. Are you really doing this? This isn't like you. Can we just talk? And then, please answer me. That last one sat heavier than the rest. Because that's where the shift happened. From control to uncertainty to something close to panic. I set the phone down slowly. Still didn't respond. Because by then, I understood something she didn't. Silence has power. And for the first time in a long time, I was the one holding it. I didn't sleep. Not really. I closed my eyes at some point, but my mind never actually shut off. It just stayed in that quiet, steady loop. No chaos, no panic. Just replaying everything with a kind of cold clarity I hadn't felt before. By the time the light started creeping through the cheap motel curtains, I was already awake. Still in the same position. Still staring at the same ceiling. And the first thing I noticed? I didn't feel the urge to check my phone right away. That alone told me something had changed. Because before all of this, she was the first thing I thought about in the morning. Every day. Without fail. Now, she was just something I had to deal with. Eventually, I reached over and grabbed my phone off the nightstand. 8 new messages. I unlocked it slowly, not because I was nervous, but because I already knew what I was going to see. And I was right. It started the same way it ended the night before. Mark, please just tell me where you are. Then, we need to talk. And then, gradually, it shifted again. Why are you doing this? I didn't do anything that bad. That one almost made me exhale through my nose. Not even anger, just disbelief. Because that's how it works, right? Minimize, reframe, control the narrative before you ever have to face it. The next one came minutes later. You're acting like I cheated or something. I stared at that message longer than the others. Because that right there, that told me everything I needed to know about where her head was at. Not regret, not accountability, just justification. And somehow that made it easier. The next message came through as I was still looking at the screen. Answer me. No, please this time. Back to control. Back to expectation. Like I owed her something. Like I was still playing the same role I'd been stuck in for months. I locked the phone again and set it down. Still no response. And at that point, it wasn't even a decision anymore. It was instinct. I got up, took a quick shower, and got dressed without thinking too much about it. Simple clothes. Same ones from yesterday, just cleaner. No rush, no pressure. Because I didn't have anywhere specific to be. And for the first time in a long time, that didn't bother me. I grabbed the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and stepped outside. The morning air hit different. Cool, quiet, real. There's something about early mornings after a night like that. The world keeps moving like nothing happened. But for you, everything's different. And weirdly, that contrast helps. Because it reminds you that no matter how big something feels in your life, it doesn't stop anything else from continuing. I got in the car and just sat there for a second, thinking, not about her, not about what happened, but about what came next. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't going back there. Not to the house. Not to that version of my life. Not even to get the rest of my stuff. Because none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was what I did next. So I started the car and pulled out of the lot. About 10 minutes into the drive, my phone buzzed again. This time, I picked it up immediately. Not because I suddenly cared, but because I was curious. The message was short. Are you really just going to disappear? I read it once, then again. And for the first time since everything happened, I actually considered responding. Not to argue, not to explain, just to close it. But then I thought about it for another second, and realized something. She didn't deserve closure. Not the kind she was asking for. Because closure, for her, meant control. It meant getting me back into a conversation. Back into the dynamic. Back into the role. And I wasn't doing that. So instead, I did something else. I turned the phone off. Completely. No more messages. No more vibrations. No more noise. Just silence. And the moment the screen went black, I felt it. That shift. Like I had finally stepped out of something I didn't even realize I was trapped in. I spent the rest of the morning driving. No destination. No plan. Just moving forward. And somewhere along the way, the thoughts started changing. Less about what happened. More about what I ignored. Because the truth is, none of this came out of nowhere. The signs were there. The distance. The attitude. The way she stopped investing in anything that had to do with us. I saw it. I just didn't act on it. Because it's easier to stay comfortable than it is to face something that might break everything. But now everything was already broken. And strangely, that made things simpler. By the time I stopped again, it was mid-morning. I pulled into a gas station, got out, and just stood there for a second, stretching like I'd been holding tension in my body for months without realizing it. And maybe I had. I went inside, grabbed a coffee, and caught my reflection in the glass fridge door. And for a second, I didn't recognize the guy looking back. Not because he looked different, but because he felt different. Calmer, detached, clear, like something heavy had finally been removed. And I think that's when it fully settled in. I wasn't walking away from something good. I was walking away from something that had already ended. I just took a little longer to accept it. When I got back in the car, I didn't turn my phone back on. Didn't feel the need to. Because whatever she was saying, whatever she was feeling, it didn't change anything anymore. She made her choice. And now, so had I didn't turn my phone back on until late afternoon. Not because I forgot. Because I didn't need it. That's the part that felt the strangest. For years, my life had some kind of connection to her. Texts, calls, updates, small check-ins that made everything feel linked. Now, silence. And the more I sat in that silence, the more I realized how loud things had been before. Constant tension. Constant second-guessing. Constant awareness of her mood, her tone, her distance. It drains you without you even noticing. Until it's gone. I was parked near a quiet overlook just outside the city when I finally picked the phone up again. I stared at the black screen for a second, then held the power button. It lit up. Notifications flooded in immediately. More than I expected. I unlocked it slowly. 14 messages. Missed calls. All from her. I opened them. The first few were exactly what I expected. Why are you ignoring me? This isn't how you handle things. We need to talk like adults. Still trying to control it. Still trying to frame it like I was the one doing something wrong. But then, it changed. You can't just disappear like this. I don't even know where you are. Mark. This is getting ridiculous. That one almost made me shake my head. Because what she meant wasn't, this is ridiculous. What she meant was, I don't have control anymore. And that's when the tone shifted again. Can you at least tell me you're okay? That was new. Not demanding. Not accusing. Just uncertain. I kept reading. I'm serious. Just one message. I don't understand what's happening. And then the one that stood out the most. This isn't you. I leaned back in the seat, phone still in my hand. Because she was right. It wasn't me. At least, not the version of me she was used to. The one who explained. The one who stayed. The one who tried. That version of me disappeared the moment she made her choice in front of me like I didn't exist. The next message came in while I was still reading. Please. Just that. No explanation. No control. No attitude. Just one word. And that's when I knew. The confidence she had, it was gone. I didn't respond. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because there was nothing left to say. Anything I could have said would have just reopened something I had already closed. And I wasn't going backwards. I locked the phone and set it down on the passenger seat again. This time, not turning it off. Just letting it be. I sat there for a while watching the sun dip lower. And for the first time since everything happened, my thoughts shifted away from her. Not completely, but enough. Enough to think about something else. Something bigger. Myself. That sounds obvious, but it's not. Not when you've spent years adjusting around someone else. You forget what your own decisions feel like. What your own space feels like. And sitting there, in that quiet, I realized something simple. I didn't lose everything. I lost something that wasn't real anymore. And that's not the same thing. Eventually, I started the car again. This time with a direction. Not a final one. Just forward. That evening, I checked into a different place. Not a motel this time. Something a little more stable. Not permanent, but not temporary either. A middle ground. Because that's what I was in. Not the old life. Not the new one. Just the space in between. I dropped my bag, sat down, and finally let myself breathe. No tension. No expectation. No waiting for her to walk into the room or say something that would shift the mood. Just quiet. And then, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at it. Her name. I let it ring. It stopped. Then another message came in. I know you're reading these. I didn't react. Another one. Can you just tell me if you're coming back? That question lingered. Not because it was hard to answer, but because of what it meant. She still thought there was a version of this where I come back. Where we sit down. Where she explains. Where I listen. Where we try to fix it. And maybe, a week ago that version existed. But not anymore. I picked up the phone. Stared at the message. And for the first time, I typed something. Not a paragraph. Not an explanation. Just one line. I'm not coming back. I looked at it for a second. Simple. Clear. Final. Then I hit send. The response came faster than anything before. What do you mean? Another message right after. You're seriously ending everything over this? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because that right there told me everything I needed to know. She still didn't understand. Still thought this was about that one moment. That one night. That one decision. But it wasn't. It was about everything leading up to it. Everything I ignored. Everything she dismissed. Everything that built up until that moment just confirmed it. More messages came in. Longer now. Faster. You're overreacting. We can fix this. It wasn't what it looked like. That one almost made me laugh. Because at this point, there was nothing left to explain. Then finally, it hit. Mark, please don't do this. And right after that, I need you to talk to me. Not want. Need. And that's when the shift completed. From control, to confusion, to panic. I set the phone down. Didn't respond again. Because I had already said everything I needed to. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt something solid. Not anger. Not sadness. Not even relief. Just certainty. She lost control the moment I stopped playing my role. And now, she was feeling it. The messages didn't stop. But they changed. Less accusations. Less control. More cracks. I made a mistake. I didn't think you'd actually leave. That one stuck with me. Not I'm sorry. Not I hurt you. Just surprised that I didn't stay. Then came the truth. Just enough of it. He's not what you think. I stared at that message longer than I expected. Because suddenly it wasn't about us anymore. It was about damage control. More messages followed. He lied to me. It's complicated. I didn't know everything. And that's when it clicked. Whatever she thought she was choosing was already falling apart. But that didn't matter. Because I wasn't an option anymore. Not a backup. Not a second choice. Just gone. A few days later I heard the rest. Through mutual friends. Not her. Turns out the guy had problems. Debts, lies, a whole life she didn't bother to look into. And somehow, she dragged my name into it. Used things that were mine to help him out. That part didn't even make me angry. It just confirmed everything. She didn't lose me because of one mistake. She lost me because she stopped valuing anything real. I didn't call her. Didn't confront her. Didn't ask for anything back. I let it go. Because starting over with nothing was still better than staying in something fake. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking back.